The Florida city, like others around the country, is trying to control the home-sharing market. Renters often find out their weekend home is illegal when they get a knock on the door. On a recent Friday evening, David Igbauke and his friends were relaxing in their Miami Beach Airbnb, listening to music and getting ready to go out to dinner. Their plans were interrupted by a knock at the door. City of Miami Beach, said Jackie Caicedo, a code compliance officer who works for the city. Mr. Igbauke opened the door and began answering questions. Was he from Miami Beach? No. Was he on vacation? Yes. Did he find the apartment on Airbnb? Yes. Ms. Caicedo had some bad news. I'm here because, basically, this is an illegal short-term rental, she said. It's in a residential area. It's zoned in a residential area, so it's prohibited for anyone to rent a unit for less than 6 months and a day. That same night, within a 45-minute period, Ms. Caicedo knocked on the doors of 5 other apartments in the building at 1300 15th Street, a 2-story, 8-unit white structure. Apartment 101 had 2 older men who wouldn't reveal their plans. In apartment 103, 2 men in their 20s were visiting from New York City for the weekend. Apartment 104 had an Argentine family of 4. Apartment 201 had an older Chilean couple on vacation for the week. In apartment 204, a young man and woman were visiting from the nearby town of Hallandale, Florida. All of the apartments had been illegally rented out. The property manager of an apartment building next door had called in a complaint. Typically, when the city's code compliance officers come across illegal short-term rentals, they ask renters to contact their hosts and ask to be relocated. In situations where the hosts won't cooperate, guests still have to leave. On occasion, the city helps them find a new place to stay. But since Mr. Igbauke and his friends were cooperative and leaving after just 2 nights, Ms. Caicedo said she would recommend that they be allowed to stay in the apartment. But when another officer arrived the following day, the friends became annoyed. They contacted the man who had rented them the apartment on Airbnb, who went by the name of Jason, to ask for a refund, and contacted Airbnb as well. They were told that, because they did not notify anyone immediately after Ms. Caicedo's visit on Friday evening, they could not get their money back. Mr. Igbauke said that Jason, who was friendly on the first day, seemed angry with his guests when they complained about the officers coming by. The owner of the building was fined $40,000. Mr. Igbauke's rental was on the edge of a neighborhood known as Flamingo Park that has become a flashpoint in the battle between residents and companies that offer short-term rentals in Miami Beach, including Booking.com, VRBO, HomeAway, Flipkey and, in particular, Airbnb. Save for a few properties that have been grandfathered in, and in the city's overlay district where short-term transient rentals are allowed, the city prohibits rentals of less than 6 months and a day in many residential neighborhoods. We have residential areas in our community and we have zoned them so when people purchase a home they know they are in a residential community, said Mayor Dan Gelber of Miami Beach, saying that Airbnb was knowingly flouting the law. Airbnb, for its part, is currently suing the city, saying that its regulations are overly burdensome. Nobody benefits when cities impose laws written with the sole intent of punishing both residents and consumers, wrote Benjamin Breet, a spokesman for the company, in an email. In the increasingly heated war between the rental companies and communities, renters like Mr. Igbauke and his friends, who unwittingly book rooms that are being offered illegally, are the collateral damage. They can end up out on the street, out hundreds of dollars and in need of a new place to stay, sometimes in the middle of the night. We 100% would have rented elsewhere if we'd known we couldn't stay there. Mr. Igbauke said. The whole thing was out of our hands, which is frustrating. It's easy to understand why tourists want to stay in Flamingo Park. It's close to the beach. It's surrounded by popular restaurants. As one tourist who didn't want to be named because she was staying in an illegal rental said while rolling her bag down the street, Flamingo Park is postcard perfect. An outsider might not notice, but locals walking through Flamingo Park point out the signs that homes are being rented out. There are the lockboxes on the sides of buildings, attached to bike racks or slightly hidden behind hedges. These boxes are where renters pick up the keys to their vacation homes. Sometimes these are the people wandering through the neighborhood looking a little lost, or the ones who ring the wrong buzzer because they aren't quite sure where to go. You get to a point where you feel like you're living in a hotel room, said Kathleen Smarsh, a resident of Flamingo Park. You don't know who is coming and going at all hours. Another clue is usually heard before it's seen, the seemingly endless sound of suitcases rolling down the sidewalk, through a building's lobby or hallways, at all hours, residents said. Then there's the loud music that residents said awakens them at night, typically blasting from Ubers, Lyfts and cabs depositing drunk young guests at their rentals, or from the homes themselves. Increasingly, residents have filed noise complaints with the city, which brings out officers like Ms. Caicedo, who night after night knock on doors and tell renters that they're breaking the law. The Code Compliance Department said that noise complaints are one way it finds out about illegal rentals. Young people often want to continue the party after they've left an actual party, Ms. Caicedo said. Usually we only find out it's a short-term rental after we go to a place for another complaint like noise. The department said it conducted 1,737 short-term rental investigations in the 2017-2018 fiscal year, up from 592 in 2013-2014. For the last 2 years, any interactions have been captured on the body cameras code compliance officers wear when they're on duty. Residents say they also have to deal with the trash left behind by renters. If these were mom-and-pop operations, with people renting out a room here and there, we wouldn't all notice, said Jeff Donnelly, who has lived in Flamingo Park with his wife since 1992. We notice because these are inns without innkeeping, and the innkeeping falls on the neighbors.